Imagine waking up to the realization that the heaviest thing you carry is the person you believe yourself to be. We spend our entire lives building a monument to this self, decorating it with achievements and guarding it against every perceived threat. Yet, this constant defense is exactly what prevents us from experiencing true peace. The Buddha offered a radical perspective, suggesting that this solid self is actually a collection of changing parts, a biological mirage shaped by our survival instincts. When we look directly into this illusion, we do not lose our humanity. We find our freedom. This is the wisdom of Anatta, an invitation to set down the burden of the ego and step into a life of unshakable clarity. By merging ancient insights with modern psychology, we can transform our daily struggles into a quiet, profound awareness. To understand why we feel like a solid self, we must first look at the long history of our biological ancestors and the evolutionary pressures that shaped our minds. For millions of years, nature did not care about our happiness, only our survival and the continuation of our genetic lineage. This relentless drive created a mind that is hypervigilant, always scanning for threats and opportunities to enhance its status. We developed a powerful cognitive software that groups disparate experiences into a single narrative, creating the illusion of a permanent owner of these experiences. This owner, this sense of I, was a useful fiction for navigation in a dangerous world. If you feel like a distinct entity, you are more likely to defend your body and seek resources for your offspring. Evolution favored those who took their thoughts and feelings personally, as it ensured they would prioritize their own existence. However, what was once a survival advantage has become a psychological prison in our modern world. We spend our days defending a reputation that is merely a collection of memories, or chasing a future that promises a satisfaction which never quite arrives. We are like actors who have forgotten they are playing a role, becoming so lost in the drama that every slight feels like a mortal wound. The Buddha recognized this deep-seated habit of the mind as the primary source of our agitation and unrest. He saw that we cling to our thoughts, our bodies, and our perceptions as if they were a solid fortress that could keep us safe. But this fortress is built on shifting sands and ever-changing conditions. When we look at our lives through the lens of evolutionary psychology, we see that the self is not a thing, but a dynamic process designed to keep us wanting more. This hunger is never satisfied because the self is inherently empty of any lasting substance or permanence. We are caught in a loop of craving and aversion, fueled by the belief that there is a soul that must be protected at all costs. It is a heavy burden to maintain this image of ourselves in a world that is constantly changing and decaying. Every time we say me or mine, we are reinforcing a boundary that separates us from the rest of reality. This separation creates a sense of loneliness and fear, as we realize that everything we cherish can be taken away. The root of our suffering lies in this fundamental misunderstanding of our own nature. We mistake the river for a statue, and the clouds for a permanent sky that will never move. To find true resilience, we must learn to see through this biological trickery and recognize it for what it is. We must develop the courage to examine the very foundations of our identity without flinching. This is not about losing ourselves in a void, but about discovering a freedom that is not dependent on the ego. It is about recognizing that the mind is a flow of events without a fixed center or a controller. When we stop trying to hold on to the wind, we finally find the evolutionary path to a mind that is truly unshakable. If we wish to dismantle the illusion of the self, we must apply a sharp and surgical awareness to our moment-to-moment experience. The Buddha provided a framework for this investigation by breaking the human experience into 5 distinct groups, or aggregates. The first is the physical form, the body that we inhabit and often mistake for our true identity. When we look closely at the body, we see it is a collection of elements in constant flux, breathing, digesting, and aging. It is not a singular thing, but a biological process that we do not fully control or own. The second is feeling, the immediate tone of our experiences as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. These feelings arise and vanish like bubbles on a stream, yet we often let them dictate our entire lives and choices. The third is perception, the way our mind labels and identifies things in the world. We see a tree, we hear a bird, we label a person as a friend or an enemy. These labels are mental constructs, not the reality of the things themselves as they exist. The fourth aggregate is mental formations, our thoughts, intentions, and habits. This is where the story of the self is most active, weaving together past and future into a convincing narrative of a person. Finally, there is consciousness, the basic awareness of these various phenomena as they arise. When we look into each of these categories, we search for the self with a deep and honest gaze. Is the self the body? If so, which part remains the same from childhood to old age? Is it the feelings that change every hour? Is it the thoughts that drift through the mind without our permission? We find that each aggregate is impermanent and conditioned by other factors outside our control. None of them possess an inherent, independent core that we can call our own. This dissection allows us to see that the self is more like a composite image than a solid object. It is like a chariot, which is only a name we give to the assembly of wheels, axles, and frame. If you take the parts away one by one, the chariot disappears as a concept. In the same way, when we investigate the 5 aggregates, we find the parts but no permanent owner behind them. This realization is not meant to make us feel empty in a negative sense, but to relieve us of the burden of maintaining a false identity. We begin to see that life is happening, but it is not happening to a someone located inside the head. There is thinking, but no thinker to be found. There is walking, but no walker separate from the movement. This perspective shifts our focus from being the star of a drama to being a witness to a natural process. It allows us to hold our pain with more space and our joy with more lightness and ease. We no longer have to take every thought so seriously, because we see that thoughts are just mental weather passing through. By analyzing our existence in this way, we break the spell of the ego. We stop trying to find security in things that are by nature insecure and fragile. This is the beginning of true clarity, a way of looking that transforms our relationship with every moment of our lives. When the illusion of the self starts to thin, we discover a vastness that was always there, hidden behind the noise of our own stories. We live in a culture that is obsessed with the idea of individual greatness and the constant improvement of the self. From a young age, we are told that we must find ourselves, express ourselves, and build a personal brand that stands out in a crowded world. This pressure is fueled by our evolutionary drive for status, yet it has been amplified 1,000 times by the digital age. We spend hours curating an image of a life that does not exist, hoping to receive the validation of others who are equally busy curating their own illusions. This relentless pursuit of self-actualization often leads to a profound sense of exhaustion, because we are trying to stabilize something that is inherently unstable. We believe that if we just get the right job, the right partner, or the right look, our sense of I will finally feel secure and complete. But the teachings of the Buddha remind us that the ego is like a shadow. It exists only in relation to other things and has no substance of its own. When we critique this modern obsession, we see that our anxiety does not come from our failures, but from the very attempt to be a solid person in a fluid universe. We are taught to fear the idea of being a nobody, yet in the space of being nobody, there is a vast and quiet liberation. The more we try to define who we are, the more we limit our potential to experience life as it truly is. We become trapped in the narrow corridors of our own preferences and prejudices, unable to see the interconnected web of existence that sustains us. Evolutionary psychology explains that our brains are wired to prioritize the self, but philosophy teaches us that this wiring is a source of constant friction. Every time our self-image is challenged, we react with anger or defensiveness, further entrenching ourselves in the illusion of separation. We treat our identities like precious glass statues, terrified that a single word of criticism will shatter them into 1,000 pieces. This fragility is the price we pay for clinging to a ghost. True strength does not come from reinforcing the ego, but from having the wisdom to let it go. When we stop trying to be someone special, we become capable of being truly present for everyone. We no longer need to perform or pretend, because we recognize that the performer is just another thought passing through the mind. This critique is not a call to passivity, but a call to a more authentic and grounded way of being. It is an invitation to step out of the frantic race for self-importance and into the cool water of reality. By recognizing the vanity of the ego, we open the door to a compassion that is not filtered through the lens of what is in it for me. We begin to understand that the suffering of others is not different from our own, and the walls we built to protect ourselves were actually the walls that kept us isolated. Bringing the wisdom of non-self into our daily activities is the ultimate practice of applied awareness. It is one thing to understand Anatta in a quiet room, but it is another to live it in the middle of a difficult conversation or a stressful day at work. When we approach our relationships without a heavy sense of self, we stop seeing others as tools for our own gratification or as obstacles to our desires. We become better listeners, because we are no longer waiting for our turn to speak or searching for ways to prove we are right. Our interactions become smoother and more harmonious, as the need to defend a fragile ego disappears. In our professional lives, we can focus on the work itself rather than on the recognition we might receive for it. This shift in perspective leads to a state of flow where the boundary between the doer and the deed begins to dissolve. We find that we can be more creative and effective when we are not paralyzed by the fear of failure or the greed for success. This is the ultimate freedom, the ability to act fully in the world without being bound by the results of our actions. We learn to meet life's challenges with a resilient and unshakable mind, knowing that the storms of emotion are just temporary conditions that do not define us. When loss occurs, as it inevitably will, we do not collapse in despair because we have seen that there was never anything permanent to lose in the first place. This does not mean we become cold or indifferent. Rather, our love becomes more expansive and unconditional because it is no longer tied to the narrow interests of the self. We can care for the world and for others with a depth that was previously impossible when we were preoccupied with our own safety. Every moment of mindfulness is an opportunity to see the true nature of reality and to break free from the illusions that cause us pain. We begin to notice the subtle ways the ego tries to sneak back in, claiming our insights as its own or patting itself on the back for being so spiritual. With a gentle and sharp awareness, we can smile at these movements of the mind and let them go without judgment. Life becomes a beautiful dance of cause and effect, a symphony of experiences that we are privileged to witness and participate in. We recognize that we are not the owners of our lives, but the temporary stewards of a miraculous biological and conscious process. This clarity brings a sense of lightness to our steps and a deep peace to our hearts. We are no longer at war with the world or with ourselves, because we have found the place where the conflict ends. The journey of seeing the true nature of the self is not a destination, but a continuous unfolding of wisdom and grace. It is the path to a resilience that does not require a hard shell, but a soft and open heart that is willing to experience everything just as it is. As you move back into the rhythm of your day, carry this awareness with you like a quiet flame. Remember that you do not need to build a fortress to be safe, nor do you need to be a someone to be worthy of love and existence. The peace of Anatta is always available, just beneath the surface of your next thought and your next breath. Look directly into the flux of your experience and see the beauty of a world that is constantly renewing itself. There is nothing to hold on to, and in that letting go, there is everything to gain. May you walk with lightness, speak with truth, and live with a heart that is as vast as the sky.